You guys want to hear some good ones? All right. So here's some relational advice. Ladies, if he asks you how your day is going every day, he supplies you with all you need, all your needs, wants God to be the central part of your relationship, and prays for you when you walk away, he's not your man. He's a Chick-fil-A worker. Stop holding up the line, please. My pleasure. So a teacher asked her students to use the word beans in a sentence. My father grows beans, said one girl. My mother cooks beans, said a boy. A third student spoke up. We're all human beings. Oh, come on. I think this is a good one. So, reaching the end of a job interview, the human resources officer asked a young engineer fresh out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, what is the starting salary you're looking for? The engineer replies, in the region of 125,000 a year, depending on the benefits package. The interviewer inquires, well, what would you say to a package of 5 weeks vacation, 14 paid holidays, full medical and dental, company matching retirement up to 50% of your salary, a company car leased every 2 years, say a red Corvette? The engineer sits up straight in his chair and says, wow, are you kidding? The interviewer replies, yeah, but you started it. Oh, come on now. I don't know who's doing that, but that's inappropriate. We're supposed to be picking people up instead of playing crickets back there. Was that you, Elisa? Supposed to be an edifier. You went to Catholic school, didn't you? Okay. Anybody else go to Catholic school? All right. Well, Catholic schoolgirl, you're going to like this. In a Catholic school cafeteria, a nun places a note in front of a pile of apples, and it says, only take one, God is watching. Further down the line, a pile of cookies. A little boy makes his own note, take all you want, God is watching the apples. It's too funny. It's good. Laughing is good for the soul. You know that, right? So I want to share with you guys a little bit before I get into my message about last weekend. Um, Last weekend I was in the communist country of Cuba, and it was a trip. It was a trip. I have a couple pictures. If you want to pull the first picture up for us, this is what they call El Capitolo, and it is the Capitol building right in the center of historic Havana. Um, it is modeled after our capital. And what was funny was on Friday evening, we went to dinner with a couple of pastors, and she was telling us that one of them was telling us that she had another American pastor visit, and they told him that the American Capitol was copied this one. And I guess the guy went crazy. He was, no, no. So that was kind of funny. It's a beautiful building. Um, it's a beautiful building right in the center of town. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of a an iconic landmark there. So what you have to understand is in the country of Cuba, I don't understand everything I'm talking about completely. So I'm gonna try not to say more than what's accurate. And if I go too far, then you have grace for me. Um, it's a communist country, and they really do control the movements of the people. If you buy gas, they know how much gas you buy. When you buy food, they know how much food you buy. Where you go, your daily comings and goings, not too much, but they're watching. The government is watching. Um, we were going from one part of Havana to another part of Havana, and there was a billboard with a picture of Fidel Castro on it, and it says, Fidel will live in all of us, as though he's some form of deity. And this is the communist idea that says that we will worship the government. Well, does that sound that different than Nebuchadnezzar? Doesn't sound that different. This is a thing that's been going on for generations upon generations upon generations. At one point, I was standing in a little park before our meeting on Saturday. I was standing in front of a little park, and this guy comes and says to me, he says, "Hey, that's a supermarket if you need to go in." And I said, "Oh yeah." And I noticed there was a line of people out. He says, "Yeah, it's a good one. In that one, they sell chicken and water. And that's your choice. That's your choice there." And then another store down the block, you could get tomato sauce and maybe oil. And another store, you can maybe get rice, no beans, just rice. And life is very difficult in that way, where the people are made to be, their lives are controlled to keep them in poverty, in need of the government. And it's crazy because some of them actually think it's their own idea. And so this guy came up to me that was talking to me about this. And he says, "Oh, you're an American?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "American people are the best. I hate your government, but the people are the best." And so we started talking, and we talked about how we look at the world through our own lenses. You know, an American looks at the world through an American lens, and a Cuban looks at it through a Cuban lens, and so on and so on. And then he says to me, and he stops, and he goes like this. He says, "Don't worry, I hate my government too." But you see what he had to do? He had to stop to see if there was an informant watching. So there is oppression there. There is oppression going on there. Let's look at the next picture. I think I have 5 pictures. So I thought this was a great picture. Is that not a beautiful car? Wow. And you see the little red one next to it? That's a Russian car, 1982, 83 Russian. I called it the little KGB taxis. Talk about a difference in style, right? They were everywhere, and those classic cars like that were everywhere. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool. We rode in the first night. Our taxi was a 1947 Plymouth with suicide doors. It was pretty slick. So I thought you guys would like to see that. What's the next one? Ah, this was amazing. This is a local artist, and he has a studio there. And much of his art is actually protest of what's going on. And you're starting to see a rise of protest amongst the people, and it's being expressed in the art. The photo over his left shoulder with the lady there, that's one. The one over my right shoulder, that's actually a picture of the Virgin Mary with what represents the broken body of Jesus. And I have it on my phone if you want to see it closer. It's really amazing. But there's a like a little bit of a revolution going on through the creative nature of the people. Down by the ocean, there was a bronze statue of a unicorn, and I thought it was very interesting because the front of the horse was fantasy because it was a unicorn, but the back of the horse looked like a horse that was starving. And talking to some people, it basically it represents their culture. Everything is a facade. Prosperity, everything is a facade. Everybody's taken care of as a facade, just like a unicorn is a fantasy, but really everybody's starving. It was very wonderful to see. I mean, it was beautiful in that way because you see the heart of the people starting to become expressed since Fidel has died. The hold is not quite as tight. I think the next picture is probably yes. This is probably my favorite part of the trip. This is Yasir and Akenya Serrano. They are pastors in Havana. And I didn't know them before going. I didn't know anybody. I had sent about 3 emails back and forth. Didn't know where we were staying other than an address. didn't know anything. And um, the other pastor we met with was great. We ministered at one of their churches. That was great. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. Um, but sometimes there are people when you meet them that the vibe you get from them is like they're really nice people, but they're kind of like friends of the family, and there are people who are family. Uh, these people are family. And in talking with them, we're sitting and they came to our bed and breakfast and we talked for a while. Then we took a taxi. It was so funny because they have a motor scooter that broke down halfway and they got a taxi and came and we went to their house and we were there for like 7 hours just eating and laughing and enjoying each other. And their spiritual parents are Leif and Jennifer Hetland. Matter of fact, Leif Hetland is going to be doing an outreach in Cuba very soon, and it's with them. And we have a lot of the same people we're all connected to. And so we were talking about several years ago how I had to stop using mint chocolate chip ice cream as a sermon illustration because people started bringing it to me in coolers. And he says, "Oh, you did just like me. You manipulated your church like I manipulated mine for Malta," because he would do the same thing and they would bring him cases of Malta, which is like a Latin caramel disgusting drink that they drink. And so he and I have been communicating since I've left. We've been sending significant amounts of jokes about ice cream in Malta. His dad actually lives in Miami. It was an amazing time because we shared a lot of things about our personal lives and vulnerability and the body of Christ, and we're able to minister and love one another in an amazing way. The discipleship school is probably going to be going to their place the third or fourth weekend of October, is what it looks like, for a 3, possibly 4-day outreach. And quite possibly we may be going multiple times a year. So get ready if you really want to answer the call of being called to the nations like the scriptures tell us to do. Super easy to get to, so it's convenient. So we need to continue to pray for them. His name is like Yasser Arafat. And he says, it's not a very Cuban sounding name, but it's my name. And Akenya or Aki. So we love them. And it was fantastic. That's their son in the back over there messing around with the drums or something. And it was really a great time. What else do I got? Okay, I'm going to go back to them because I don't want that to distract everybody. That's too much of a story right yet. So Sunday morning, we ministered at a Foursquare church in the town of Managua outside of Caracas. I didn't go with the intention to minister, but they asked us to. So I shared. I had a prophetic word for the pastor that was actually a corrective word, which was a little bit scary because I just met them 2 days before. But I shared it with them and they said, "Oh, we know her and we love her and she's amazing and that's what she needs to hear. That will be good." So we shared that, and then we had a salvation. We went for some healing. We had 3 deaf ears opened. One lady came forward because we called for ears, and not everybody that came forward were deaf. And so we had some other things happen. One lady, her face was swollen up like this, and as we laid hands on her, you could feel it and see it going down to normal. And that was really cool. We had, I think, probably 15 or 16 healings of a church, about 120, 130 people, which was really amazing. And so, and then we did some praying for impartation. And the way I've described it to Shanna is it was like when we were in Brazil. It was that much fire. It was pretty amazing. And then after we went to the pastor's house for lunch, and they told us in order to get to the airport we had to leave the house at 2:15, and it was time to go. And I said, "We got to go." And 2:20, we didn't go yet. 2:25, we hadn't gone yet. And I finally said to my friend that was traveling with me, "Oh yeah, and at that church on Sunday morning, I never had this happen before. I'm on the front row, and they bring me a little cup of Cuban coffee. And I was standing there drinking my Cuban coffee. I put that down, then they bring me some hot tea with honey in it. And so um, I haven't drank so much coffee in my life in those 3 days. It was unreal. And so 2:30 comes around, and I finally said, "We've got to go now." So we get in the car, and you remember the picture of that little red Russian car? Well, it was basically the same car but blue. And we get in this little car, and we're headed towards the airport. And we're in this little box, and it starts to rain. Not as hard as it just rained here, nowhere near as that hard, but the water started to fill the roads, and it started to come down into the road we were on, headed towards the airport. And I'm looking ahead, and the windshield wiper's going like this. And I'm thinking, this isn't good. He can't see. And then he's wiping the inside of the windshield with a rag. And then my friend Todd, who's a pastor in West Palm that speaks Spanish, and it was amazing having him with us. He grabs the rag and he's wiping it as the guy's driving. And I see that up ahead, the American cars heading our way, which are all old classic American cars, are pushing the water with their bumpers. And the Russian cars are pushing it with their grills. And we're in a Russian car. And I said, Lord, you need to send your protecting angels right now. We need to get through this because I got a plane to catch. And yeah, there's no phone or internet or anything like that. So it was like I went dark, except for that they sent a message to Shanna through Facebook, which she wasn't connected with them yet. So she didn't even get it. And so they sent a picture of us eating ice cream together. And so all of a sudden I start feeling the water hitting the floorboard, and we start to float a little bit. This little KGB taxi car starts floating a little bit. And so the car stalls, and he turns the wheel, and we have just enough momentum to kind of grab a little bit of the road, and we kind of go up on just a little incline, and the water's flowing. And so if you go to the next picture, it's the perspective is off, but you can kind of see the water flowing down the road if you turn your head. I don't know why the computer did that, but I didn't have time to fix it. The water was flowing. Yeah, that's the top, looking through the little crack in the window. And so we sat there and we sat there and we sat there and we sat there and we sat there, and my heartburn is growing. My heartburn was growing. I was not happy. And he called his dad, and who's a taxi driver, and he showed up in a 1954 Opel, and we got rescued. And we made it to the airport. I didn't have time to sell my money back, my Cuban currency. I didn't have time to stand in line and sell it back, so I came home with 80 CUC Canadian currency, or Cuban currency is probably worth the same. But and we made it, and so we made it home. So it wouldn't be a trip to another country if you didn't have something like that happen. But it was very good, and so I want to encourage you guys to start to pray for those two churches there. The church is under observation all the time by the government. Churches of more than 200, they really are under observation, and most of the time they're not that size. If they have a gathering of 200 or 300 people, typically the government starts to show up and monitor. And so, from an American perspective, that seems like a bad thing. But really, as I listen to them, it actually brings life, because the church is very alive there. As we see that throughout history, every time the church comes under persecution or tension, it becomes unified. So what I saw was pastors who did not pastor the same church were still unified. And it's because they were not comfortable in their culture. They were comfortable in the Lord. And it was powerful to see that the people who were committed to Christ were committed because they knew that there would be some form of consequence to pay if they live their faith out. I think it limits their opportunities for jobs. It limits other opportunities. And so the church is alive and there is power going on there. So we need to pray for that as we move forward. It's an easy place to travel. Quite honestly, the food is terrible in any restaurant I ate at because the government owns every restaurant. I went to a restaurant one time. They had 10 items to pick from on the special. We sat down. I ordered one. They said, "We don't have that. Your choice is this or this." And my friend says, "Communism, baby." That's what it is. They got you in for the picadillo and they tell you you're going to eat the pork. Oh, and the worst thing of it all is beef is illegal to eat. It's illegal. Unless you're in the higher echelon of the government or in the high-end restaurants, it is illegal to buy, sell, and eat beef. It's not on your plate. And so, it's amazing how the law works in our lives because I got home late Sunday night and Monday was my birthday. And so we went out for dinner and I had to go get a steak because somebody told me for 3 days I couldn't eat beef. By golly, on the fourth, I'm eating beef. I didn't need it, but I wanted it. So that's all about Cuba. So I don't know what you have for the kids, if you're going to take them out or we're going to stay, whatever, but we're good. So that's all about Cuba. If you have any questions, we'll talk about it later. So I want to look tonight, and I'm not going to preach long. I'm going to tell you what the Lord's been telling me, and then we're going to do some ministry at the end. If you look in Exodus chapter 13, there's this story that if you've been in the church for long or you've read your Bible much, you know this story. The Exodus story is when Moses brings the children of Israel out of Egypt. This is the story where they cross the Red Sea. The Red Sea is parted. All of this takes place. And so in chapter 13, it says, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the Philistines, although that was near. Okay, so he was taking them, and he took them the farther way because the nearer way was where the Philistines were. Why, though? For God said, lest the people change their mind when they see war and return to Egypt. So the Lord knows that when we see difficulty, we have a tendency to run. So he had already brought them out of Egypt. And although it seemed like the long way, it was the easy way. Okay? The Lord is taking them on a journey. It was the long way, but yet for them, it was the easy way because he knew their hearts were weak. But look at this in verse 18. But God led them around by the way of the wilderness towards the Red Sea, towards the very sea that they just came across. And the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt and equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry my bones with you from here. And they moved on from Succoth and encamped in Etham on the edge of the wilderness. And look at this. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud and led them along the way, and by night by a pillar of fire to give them light that they may travel by day and night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. So what we have to understand is that the Lord is always taking us on a journey. The Lord is always taking us on a journey. And he gave them a pillar of cloud during the day to travel by, and a pillar of fire by night to travel by. Isn't that what it says? Look what it says. That they might travel by day and by night. See, the problem is we assume that the night would be the season for rest. We assume that the nighttime would have been the season for doing nothing. But the Lord provides guidance for movement in both the time that we would normally travel and the time that doesn't seem normal for travel. If you were traveling with a caravan of 1 million people, you wouldn't want to travel at night. But the Lord provided them a way to travel by night. Because it's the same idea that the Lord expects fruit out of our lives, both in season and out of season. And so what we need to understand is God is moving. God is moving. Are we moving with him? And what we do, here's what humanity typically does. And I'm not really picking at anybody. I'm just saying this is what we do as humanity. We follow the Lord until we achieve what we have deemed as the end result, and we stop. See, the children of Israel wanted to leave Egypt. They didn't realize that there was a promise that they had waiting on them on the other side of the wilderness. And so what we do is we follow the Lord and we go where he's going and we listen to what he's saying and we do what he says. And then what happens is when we get to where we think he wants us to be, we stop moving. Am I the only one that's ever done that? And so what happens is God provides a waypoint marker, a GPS tracker, a directional finder in both the season of our journey when it makes sense to be moving and when everybody else would be sitting. Reinhard Bonnke says it like this: God will move with you when you move, and he will sit with you when you sit. But he's calling us to move. God is not going to force you to move whenever you're sitting. He will not do that. But like the children of Israel, they were called to leave Egypt not for the sake of leaving Egypt. They were called for the sake of entering into the promise. And what we do is we come into relationship with Jesus to leave our sinful nature behind us to enter into salvation, but yet we never enter into the promise. We're satisfied with the wilderness. And so what I've come to realize, and I'm just sharing with you some of the things the Lord has been sharing with me, I promise I'm not preaching, is God is saying this. He says, I'm moving, you have to watch. And the problem is you're moving in the direction you think I'm going. But because you're not watching, you're going in your own way. You're going in your own direction. And I was going that direction, but yet I turned. And I'll give you a perfect example. So with the discipleship school students, we have been planning for almost a year now to go to Haiti in May. And nothing was working out. Nothing. All of my contacts there, like, we love you guys. We would love for you to come. But then the whole country's in uproar. It's not working. Well, the school that you taught at last year, we moved it to the fall. It's not going to really work this year. Nothing worked. But we could have forced the issue, but instead, I felt like we needed to back up and say, Lord, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then this opportunity with Cuba sort of opened up only about 5 weeks ago. And then I was reading back through my journal when I asked you guys to prophesy your 2019, what is the Lord telling you 2019 is going to look at? And the day after I booked my tickets to Cuba, I read it and remembered he told me I would be in Cuba in April. I forgot. He told me that 2019 would be the year that strategic relationships are being born and growing. Well, I got to tell you, last weekend, we built some strategic relationships. And I've had a lot develop already this year. People all over the country. You see the Lord working, And you have to keep your eyes on where he's working, because if you go where you think that he's going, you might end up staying in the wilderness or saying, I don't know where he's going, so I'm going to go back to where I came from. But we have to understand is Jesus wants to lead us where he wants to do the most through us. There's an interesting thing that happens in Acts 16. We're going to see something when we look at this. There's a phrase that we're going to see that you will not see anywhere else in the scriptures. If you look at Acts 16, starting in verse 6, it says, and they went through the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been forbidden by the Holy Spirit to speak in Asia. So they're going through Asia, right? They're going through that area, and the Lord tells them, be quiet. Stop. And when they came to Mysia, or Mysia, depending on how you want to say it, they attempted to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. That will be the only place in all of Scripture you see the Spirit of Jesus. It's the only place. So they're going. They go to Phrygia, they go to Galatia, right? Nothing happens. They attempted to go to Bithynia, nothing happened. They came to Mysia, nothing happened. Why? Because the Spirit of the Lord does not allow them. The Spirit of Jesus says, don't go there. Why would he say, don't go there? Because he says he's over here. Don't go here because I'm leading you here. Like I mentioned to you guys earlier this year, I've been praying since December about an invitation to preach at a crusade in Pakistan later this year. And I've been seriously praying, and I want to go bad. I don't know, I just like it. Living on the edge, it sounds fun. But the Lord gave me a big stop sign this week. Not that there's anything wrong with Pakistan. They need Jesus. The brothers and sisters that we have there are amazing. They're laying their lives down for the Lord every day. But the Lord said, don't go to Pakistan, because guess why? The dates for Pakistan are exactly the same dates that the Lord opened up for us in Cuba. And so if I would have pushed through that and gone where I wanted, rather than to see that the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire had moved, I would have taken myself and possibly more people with me outside the will of the Father. But God is moving. We have to be tuned to his Spirit, because he's not just moving for me. He's moving for you. He is calling us, because see, here's the thing. We look at this and we're reading Paul's missionary journey, and he says that he goes to all these places and this happens and that happens. But it's no different for you, where the Lord says, go to this place, go to that place, shut your mouth in this place so you can open your mouth in this place. Because God is calling all of us, because look what happens. So passing through Mysia, they went down to Troas, and a vision appeared to Paul in the night. So now all of a sudden, they walked in obedience by not going where they wanted to go. They stepped into obedience by not doing what they wanted. And what were they doing? Waiting. Waiting is an active, it is not a passive activity, it is active. When we wait, what we're doing is we are still moving forward, waiting for the Lord to bring forward what needs to happen. He says, a man of Macedonia was standing there urging him, saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. And when Paul had seen the vision, immediately we sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. God is calling us You, me, us, we, to preach the gospel everywhere we go because he is moving. And when we focus on the wrong things and the wrong places, what happens is it keeps us from going to the very place that he's called us to go to. He is moving. He is moving. And this is the idea. He is expecting us to be ready to move both day and night. He's expecting us to move in season and out of season. He's expecting us to bear fruit when it doesn't make sense that it's time to bear fruit. He's expecting this out of us, not because it has anything to do with us, because we're walking and living in dependency of his voice. And I've said it before. What would happen if a group of people were really committed to hearing his voice and saying what he said and going where he goes and doing what he's doing? It's really simple. It's doing what Jesus said. He says, I don't do anything unless I see the Father doing it. I don't say anything unless I hear him saying it. Well, in this case, Paul, I don't go anywhere unless he's telling me to go there. But here's the problem, is we have confused that our lives are our lives. But if I believe the Bible, and I do, front to back, maps, index, table of contents, all of it, it tells me that my life is no longer my own, but it's been bought with a price. And so what is the joy in all of this? What is the pleasure in all of this? Because, here's the thing. My heart yearns for the nations. It yearns for it. If the Lord gave me the green light right now to travel the world preaching the gospel, I would be on a jet plane right now. And he gives me, I feel like I'm on a road after a hurricane where it's flashing green sometimes and flashing red sometimes. I feel like a schizophrenic. Go, stop, go, stop, go, stop. Right? But that's the season. I know that. My heart yearns for it. And you say, well, Pastor Lee, my heart doesn't really yearn for the nations. My heart doesn't really do that. I've got kids, I've got a job. I've got kids, I've got a job. I've got this to do, I've got that to do. I just want to be a good person, go to church. Well, what's happened then is we've missed the point. Because we have nations that are around us. And we have to go. Now, I'm not the guy that says I don't make excuses. Jesus says, go therefore into all nations. So I don't believe that there is an excuse for any of us to not go. But while we're not going, we need to be going while we're here. I don't like that attitude that says, why would I go to that country when there's a lot of people struggling in America? Well, you know what? That's right. So when I'm in America, I'm going to those people. And when I'm in Cuba, I'm going to those people. And when I'm in Haiti, I'm going to those people. When we're in Brazil, we're going to those people. When I'm in maybe later this year, Honduras, I'm going to those people. Wherever I'm at, wherever you're at. Jason's already said it. Apparently, he goes to the nation of Publix. Right? Anybody been to Walmart lately? It's kind of like a different world. When I was in Havana, they asked me, what is Havana like to you? And I said, well, it's slightly nicer than Belle Glade, Florida. Way nicer than Pahokee. And that's for real. I'm not joking. So there's a nation right there. But why is this? I was sharing with a group of guys earlier this week after letting them listen to something. You know, in Hebrews 11, it's the faith chapter, right? By faith, we know that basically all things that were created by God out of things that are unseen. So everything we see. And it goes on and talks about the different patriarchs of our faith. But in verse 8, it makes a statement basically where God led Abraham without telling Abraham where he was going. Our problem is we want to know where we're going before we will follow. I want to know where the destination is before I get on the bus. Well, I'm going to bust your bubble. God will not work that way. He says, will you get on the bus and follow me? Will you go where my cloud is leading? My cloud of glory, will you go where it's leading even if you don't know? Because what we saw in Exodus 13 was that the Lord was leading them on a longer journey than they needed for their benefit. He was taking them on a way that if you were to look at a map, you wouldn't have gone for their benefit. The Lord He's not concerned with our comfort along the way. He's concerned with our obedience. He's not concerned of if we're okay with his plan. He's concerned if we'll join his plan, even if it takes us out of our comfort. Because I have to be honest with you, the little thing with the car the other day, that was not the most hairy thing I've ever had it happen to me in another country. But the thing is I was pretty jammed up over it because I didn't want to stay the night in the Havana airport Sunday night. And so I lost my joy real quick. I did. I lost my joy. I lost my peace. If you know Leif Hetland and his teachings, I just put myself in chair number 2 and I was being a jerk. Chair number 2 is for the Christians who don't live a life full of peace because they don't know who they are. But Solomon tells us in Proverb 25, he tells us this, and I've shared this before, but I want us to understand. He says, it is the glory of God to conceal things, but the glory of kings is to search things out. God is moving. He is moving, and he is actually keeping things from us because he believes that we are kings, and he's calling us to search them out. He's keeping the end game from us so that we will search out the here and now. He's keeping the end result from us because the truth of the matter is, the guy who started Faith Farm Ministries 68, 69 years ago, his name is Pappy. Everybody called him Pappy. He would often say that when he died in 1993, that if he knew how big it was going to be in 1993, that he would have never started it in 1958. Because he just started out feeding and clothing drunks on the street of Fort Lauderdale, winos. If we know how big the thing the Lord is moving us into, we would never join. So it's the idea that he is taking us to places and he's not telling us where we're going because he's concealing his secrets so that we will seek them out. And so what I know is the Lord is on the move. And the Lord is calling us to something. And I'm going to say a couple things. The Lord does not call us to things simply so we will quit them. Jackson, you taking count? I love you, buddy. Blessed are children. We're so blessed to have children. They bring life. And so the thing to realize is the Lord is calling us. He does not call us to stop what we're doing because it gets hard. He does not call us to easy things. He calls us to hard things. And what did he do for the children of Israel? One time he took them the easy way, that was the long way. Other times he's taken them straight through the heart of things, right? But he always gives a direction. He always tells us how to go, where to go. He always tells us. He never showed Israel that where they were going to be in 10 days. He told them where they were going to be in the next step. And it's our job to seek out his glory. It's our job to follow him. It's our job to trust and say, I don't know where we're going, but I know the next step is this place, and so I'm going to follow you into it. And that's what God is calling us to do as individuals and as a body. He's calling us to step out and say, I'm willing to step and follow you one step. And I'm willing to follow you every step, but right now you're only showing me one step. And here's the problem is we go into places, right? We go into places and we begin to experience turmoil. We begin to experience pushback. We experience persecution or rejection, and things aren't going the way we want them to go. And we back up and you say, well, the Lord must not have wanted me to go there. He might want you to go there, and he might just want you to push through it, because he's using that to make you more than you are. He sees you who for you are. We see us for who we're not. He sees you for who you're called to be, and we see us for who we're not. That's our biggest problem, is we too often see ourselves as our shortcomings when he sees us in our purpose. And so what I want to do tonight to finish, I told you I wasn't going to preach too long. What I want to do tonight to finish is I'm going to pray. And the Lord, for some of you, is going to touch some of you. And because I believe some of you have been hearing things from the Lord for some time, that he's showing you a direction in your life, a direction in your ministry, a direction in your family, and you won't follow him into that step. He's showing you. I mean, he's got the pillar, whether it be by fire or by cloud. He's showing you, and you won't step. Some of you are already stepping, and you're already in that direction, and you want to stop. You want to go back to Egypt like the Israelites. Well, I want to encourage you not to do that. I want to encourage you to listen to the Spirit of Jesus and open your mouth where he tells you to open it. Because he didn't take you to the place, he didn't give you the visions like he gave Paul of the Macedonian man that said, come and preach us the gospel. He did not give you the visions for the things he's called you into for you to walk away from them. He did not call you into your purpose for you not to experience it. He did not call you and give you the vision of doing the things and being the person that you desire deeply in your heart to leave you abandoned. And so we're going to pray. And at the end of the service, I'm going to dismiss you. And if the Lord is working on you, and if this is hitting you, and you want us to pray for you, we will make ourselves available to do that, because I believe that some of you are in that place right now of tension, that you know he's calling you in a direction and you're avoiding it. You know he's calling you for a purpose and you won't follow him because you don't know where it goes. Or you would rather go back to where it was easy, which really is a place of oppression and slavery. And so if you'll stand to your feet for me. Just close your eyes and put your hands over your heart where the Lord sits. Oh Lord, we love you. Holy Spirit, just come and dwell in our sanctuary of our hearts. Give us vision. Give us vision to see where you're moving. Give us ears to hear. Lord, we ask that the Spirit of Jesus now be released in this place. That the Spirit of Jesus that stopped Paul and then gave him a vision of where to go, stopped him from where he wasn't supposed to go, but then gave him a vision as to where to go. Lord, I pray that your Spirit is now filling this place and telling people where they need to stop and where they need to go. Lord, we know that your word says that you told us to go therefore. You did not give us a red light, you gave us a green light. I'm convinced, Father, that you never call us to back up. You never call us to back up. We should always be moving forward towards your presence, always be moving forward towards your purpose, always be moving forward into what you've called us to do and who to be. So, Lord, in Jesus' name, we release your presence. We release your goodness. Lord, we release your love. Holy Spirit, come. Release your love. I'm convinced that tonight some of you don't feel like you should move, even when you sense that God is calling you, because you're not sure that he loves you enough to take care of you. The Lord wants to release his love. He did not call you to abandon you. So, Lord, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your goodness. In Jesus' name.